So the first way to unfuck your life is never disrespect momentum. You see, for a lot of you, your biggest issue is you get a win. You win today, you set a list of things to do and you do it. You take the actions necessary to grow your business. You take the right steps in the right direction, and then all of a sudden, you kick your feet up. You get comfortable. You stop doing the things that got you to even where you are right now. Listen, you may not be a multi-millionaire. You may not be in the place you want to be in life, but even if you just have a week or a couple weeks of success, of wins, all of a sudden then you just think that, oh, you know, I can go back to my old ways and I don't actually need to keep up the things that got me here in the first place. Momentum, in my opinion, is genuinely the most powerful force you can have in your life. I always say, when it rains, it pours. And by the way, that also applies negatively. Negative momentum is a thing. The pendulum can swing either way. So when you are on a hot streak, when you have momentum in life, never ever disrespect it. Because as I said, when it rains, it pours. When one blessing comes into your life, usually there's a few more around the corner. And it genuinely makes me sad to see all these people who start their business, get a little win, and just don't know where to go from there, don't know how to keep up the momentum. And if you're looking to make $10,000 a month online, that is by far the most important thing, which is don't disrespect momentum. So that is the first way.
Now, the next principle for teenagers to become millionaires is dress to elevate. And here's what I mean by that. When you are young, people are gonna automatically discredit you. You don't wanna make it worse by the way that you dress. So here's the thing, you can have a 30-year-old that dresses in big labels, Gucci, Balenciaga, wears the funny shoes and all that stuff. And listen, I mean, I'm not against it. Sometimes when I'm feeling comfortable, I dress in streetwear, but if I'm going to an important meeting, I can guarantee you I'm not dressed like that. And my point is that you can get a 30-year-old that dresses like that looks like a 20-year-old, whereas you can get a 18 or 20-year-old that dresses very traditional, very classic, and you can get an 18 or 20-year-old that looks like they're 30. So the point is, don't spend crazy amounts of money to have all these labels and this and that. And I don't think that's a good idea ever, unless you really can afford it. You have a full wardrobe and sometimes you just want to be a little playful. My best recommendation is just go for clothes that have no branding, no label. And I'm not saying that you need to dress in 3-piece suits. Listen, even if you just go in a simple black t-shirt, simple trousers that aren't too baggy, and definitely no skinny jeans, and just some classic timeless shaped shoes. Listen, you're not dressing incredibly well, but the point is you can kind of hold your own in any room. Sometimes less really is more. So first, learn how to just dress classic and timeless, and then later down the line you can start incorporating some suits. You can start incorporating some double-breasted suits. Maybe before you go to the suits, just get some nice blazers and you can pair the blazers with trousers. It doesn't need to be a full suit. You know, a lot of times I'm just very comfortable with a nice round neck t-shirt. Not like this. This is a lot more, you know, it's a Sunday today, very home comfortable shirt. So not something as casual as this, just a nice fitted white t-shirt or black t-shirt and smart blazer over the top, some trousers and some smart shoes. And you have a very classic timeless look that's not overly formal, and you're never going to be too overdressed in any situation. And then, as I said, later down the line, you can get into your double-breasted, you can get into your 3 pieces, whatever you feel comfortable in, really. But the point is that you really need to learn how to dress to elevate, especially if you're going into the world of business at a young age, because I'm being honest with you, I experienced this firsthand. People will try to discredit you because of your age. So don't give them any excuse or reason to make it an even bigger thing than it needs to be. So dress older than you are.
Now, moving into the second way to unfuck your life, and that is to cut out the bad habit friends. And here's what I mean by that. A lot of times I notice that people have friends that, like, you're not really friends. You're just friends because you have a friendship or a bond over a bad habit. Here's what I mean. Stoners have their stoner friends, like the people they smoke weed with. But like outside of that, if they were sober, probably if they stopped smoking weed in 7 years, they wouldn't still be friends. You got your gamer friends, but outside of gaming, you don't really have that much to talk about or like that much of an interest in each other. Or you've got your partying friends, or you even have your gossip friends. You've got those friends where it just seems like all you do when you're around them is just gossip. Have a lunch, have a coffee, and gossip about people. These are friends that perpetuate and keep you doing these bad habits. If you cut out these friends, then you cut out the habits, because a lot of times these friends and the feeling that you need to keep being friends with them, or this idea that you're a bad person because all of a sudden you've changed, you have a new identity, you formed a new identity, and your identity, quite frankly, doesn't align with these people anymore. So it's fine. You don't need to be mean. You don't need to be rude. You don't need to be angry. You don't need to be emotional. You don't need to shout at them and tell them they're a horrible person and cut them off aggressively, but you just slowly distance yourself. There is nothing wrong with that. So I want you to sit here and analyze and look at all of your friends and ask yourself, why am I actually friends with them? If I was in a room with them for 30 days, Would I still have a good time? Would I enjoy myself? Would we get along? And if the answer is no, then probably there's something outside of your genuine friendship that is keeping you there.
So going back to my main point, the trajectory, whether it's now or 100 years ago, I believe that if you are young, and when I say young, I mean really below the age of 23, the trajectory has always been very clear. First, you are an apprentice. You are a sponge. You're learning as much as you can. You're absorbing everything. And then you can become the master. Now, let me tell you something. These days, we rarely have apprenticeships. We have internships. And there's a big difference. When you're an intern in a big company, I've even had friends of mine, especially when I was younger, friends of mine that were my age, obviously, for me, by the age of 21, I was making millions and millions of dollars a year. But my friends that I grew up with were looking at internships and they were telling me, oh, what internship do you recommend and this and that? And I had to tell them very honestly, I said, listen, if you go to a company that's more than 200 employees, you're gonna be lost. No one's gonna train you. You're not gonna really learn anything. But if you look back 200 years ago, let's say you were even a locksmith, you would be an apprentice, you would be young and you would be studying the craft. And even in places like Japan, this stuff still goes on. You're young and you work for a company that's not massive, not too big where you get lost and you learn things and you get to see the back end and you get to see how a master of their craft does something and you get to take all of this in as a sponge. I mean, it's the best thing you could do for yourself at the age of 17, 18, 20, 21. So just understand the difference between an apprenticeship and an internship. Really, the difference is this one, you're gonna get time, attention, and you're gonna get to really learn the craft. This one, you're just thrown in with the dogs and you have to fend for yourself. No one is really gonna take the time and care and attention to show you the ropes. So I really think that if you're 21 or younger, when you're making the decision, hey, what's my next career move? What's my next step? Forget about how much you will earn from it. I want you instead to evaluate how much are you going to learn from it. I want you to look at the thing that you're gonna learn and go, hey, if I work at this company for 1 or 2 years, what skills will I learn that will make me so much money it's not even funny at the age of 35? Because listen, if you can spend even 2 to 3 years working at the right company and working your way up through the ranks, you should then take that experience and use that to launchpad your own business when the time is right. And listen, it's nothing personal with your old company. You should never breach confidentiality agreements. You should never be disrespectful to your old company. You should never step on toes. If that company made you who you are, but you take that knowledge, you do something different, you offer something different to the market, you offer a different service, a different product, or maybe you even take that information and partner up with someone and go into a totally different industry. But the point is, you take those skills that you have learned and you understand and you realize that this is the most valuable asset that you have, and you use that to launchpad the next phase of your career. I don't think that people, especially young people, truly understand how important it is to get insider knowledge. Work like your new money, but act like your old money and have the values of old money. So just remember, you want to have that hunger of new money. Old money, they don't have that same sort of hunger, but what old money has is wisdom. So if you can match up that hunger, that drive that pushes you forward, but then have the wisdom and always learn from old money, then that will be your secret to not only making a lot of money, but making sure that you don't lose it once you get it. The first principle you need to learn if you want to be a millionaire in your teens or your early 20s is that in order to be a king, you must first be a pawn. And this is really the issue with this generation. And I say this generation even though I am included in it, but I grew up with very traditional principles around respect. I come from a background that is a mix between Eastern European and Middle Eastern. So like growing up, you have no option. You learn respect and you learn the pecking order. And I learned from a young age that you respect your elders. And that's why still to this day, I still sit across the table from people that, I'm gonna be very honest with you, are far less successful than I am, but I shut the fuck up and I listen. Because for me, in my culture, you listen to your elders. Now that doesn't mean you need to take everything that they say on board, but you at least listen. And because I grew up in this environment of learning respect, I learned that, hey, you can be a king one day, but in order to be a king, you first need to be a pawn. You first need to be able to earn your stripes. And by the way, I earned my stripes from a very young age. I started my first entrepreneurial ventures when I was 14. And I learned what it was like to work with clients and, quite frankly, for lack of a better word, be their little bitch boy. I learned what it was like to pay my dues no matter what. It's kind of like, listen, when you're young and you join a football team, you're going to be the one who's the ball boy. At the end of training, you're going to be the one who is expected to carry all of the equipment to and from. And you need to go through that to one day become the captain. You don't just come in, especially as someone who is young, and become the captain all of a sudden. And that is the issue with today's social media bullshit society. They look at things and they look at people and they go, okay, I'm going to jump from here to here, and I deserve that for some reason. And I even get this to this day. day, people say, hey, Iman, why do you recommend business models that you used to do? Why don't you recommend what you're doing right now? Do you realize how stupid that sounds? Do you realize why I may suggest business models I did when I first started my entrepreneurial ventures, or within 3 years into my entrepreneurial ventures, not now that I am coming up to my 10th year as an entrepreneur? Do you not realize why I would suggest businesses that I started as a pawn, as someone with no resources, no connection, no money, nothing? Do you realize why I suggest those businesses rather than the businesses I have now with millions of followers, subscribers, tens of millions of dollars? Like, I'm sure you can kind of see why I think this is better than this. But this is what I'm saying. The younger generation, they look at things and they're like, no, I want to jump straight to the finish line. You have to earn your fucking stripes. So just remember, to be a king, you must first learn to be a pawn. And there is nothing wrong with that, by the way. There is honor, there is nobility in starting from the bottom of the pecking order, being quiet, respecting the process, and understanding that you will eventually work your way up the totem pole.